Monday night edition of the Crash the Pond podcast. We are back in your lives, folks. It feels like it's been an eternity, Jake.
It does.
You know,
It
the
does.
last few weeks or however long it's been, time has just I've lost track of it. I felt like there's been something missing. Like I couldn't put my finger on it, just like an emptiness, a void inside. But as soon as we started recording here, it clicked. This is what I've been missing. This show.
We've only missed one
our
episode,
listeners.
right?
Don't get your facts in here. I don't want to hear facts. This is pure emotion here. Pure.
And
the people want raw, unfiltered. I'm giving them that right now.
And for anyone out there not watching the video version of this, to support my good friend Felix over here, who sadly now his Montreal Canadiens have been eliminated from the Stanley Cup playoffs, having been beaten by the Tampa Bay Lightning,
having been spanked.
I am wearing a Corey Perry Montreal Canadiens jersey right now. So that is what I have on.
Appreciate you.
I am doing it in support, and it's also not because I ordered the jersey and was hoping it would get here during the Cup final to wear during the Cup final, and it didn't get here until after the Cup final was over. So
we might never see Perry in a Habs jersey again.
Well, This will become a collectible now. Or it just becomes a workout shirt, which is most likely what it will become.
94 is a good look for him, so it's okay.
A $35 workout shirt.
I mean, that's how much the dry fit shirts cost anyway.
True. By the way, want to give a huge shout out. Science Cat 108, our good friend Jess from our beer league team, just gifted out 5 subs. So thank you so much, Jess. Coldfire 725 subscribe with Twitch Prime. I'm seeing Payano Keys is here for the first time to jump catching us live. So thank you so much for everyone tuning in. This is going to be a little bit of a different show, I think, because, for the first time in maybe a month? Maybe?
We have news.
We have news to talk about?
Yeah.
And there are
different
things to preview, things coming up. There's actually things to talk about. It's weird.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, there's been a little bit of a lull in the Ducks kind of news cycle just with the season ending, the Stanley Cup final, everything like that, just really taking hold of our attention. But now there's going to be a lot coming up, and it's going to arrive fast and furious with the expansion draft, the draft itself, free agency, and the Ducks have already started to get busy. I mean, we talked about it in the beginning of the offseason when they hired Jeff Solomon, and now there's been more additions to the coaching staff, which I don't think we've talked about any of them on the show, actually.
I think we did talk about Ward, and we've actually talked about all 3 of the assistant coaches. Because
that's true.
We did talk about Jeff Ward. We did talk about Mike Stuthers, right? Is that his first name? I may have gotten the first name wrong. I'll double check that.
No, you got it.
And prior to that being announced, the day before that was all announced, we actually had done a preview of, because there was wind coming out of 31 Thoughts that the Ducks were interested in bringing in Newell Brown.
Yep.
And then we did a whole 10 to 20 minutes on Newell Brown just for the Ducks to not announce him, and us thinking that was all done and dusted and he wasn't going to get hired because they had 2 assistants. And the Ducks just go and announce that Newell Brown is an assistant coach also. So the Ducks will have 3 assistants on the bench. So if you really want an in-depth discussion about Newell Brown, go check that out. But he was the assistant coach for the Ducks way back during their Stanley Cup run, and then eventually moved on to Vancouver, where he was in charge of the Vancouver power play when they were absolutely lethal. Part of that is obviously going to be due to having the Sedins on your power play. I think that helps out just a little bit, don't you think?
Yeah, but in the last 4 years, he's also, that's where a lot of people have pointed to his quote unquote success the last 4 years with the Canucks power play. And when the news did get announced, I kind of looked into the numbers a little bit, because I actually think he was only in charge of it for the last 4 years. I could be wrong about that, and maybe there was a stint before that.
Yeah, so he was in Vancouver during their 2011 run, then left Vancouver to go to Arizona, then came back to Vancouver after.
So in the recent stint, the one that doesn't have generational talent, although you could argue Elias Pettersson is that.
Quinn Hughes, at least during that season.
Yeah, so in the 4 seasons, in the first season, if you just look at their shot map of where the shots are coming from on the power play, a lot of kind of in tight point shots. And then as soon as Elias Pettersson gets there, and he's known for being so lethal from the right circle as a left-handed shot, all of the shot volume starts coming from that right circle, and it just continues on. And then once Quinn Hughes gets there, then you see a big kind of dot, a big he heat spot come up at the point. And so what that kind of tells me is that the way that Newell Brown operated his power play in Vancouver is just, it seems like just let the best players kind of run the show. I mean, I think that that's probably what you should do if you have Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes. Now, do the results necessarily kind of justify that tactic, or if that was indeed the tactic? I mean, the Canucks didn't rank in the top half in terms of shot metric expected goals in the power play in any of those seasons. And the years where they kind of, looked good in the power play percentage stat that you'll see on broadcast, it was mostly shot percentage driven. It wasn't actually this team that was just elite at generating chances on the power play. Now, of course, the power play stats that we do have aren't perfect, but they are still pretty good, especially if you go to Evolving Hockey. And so all of that leads me to think that when I read, these articles saying, well, Newell Brown had all this success leading the Canucks power play the last 4 years, I don't really see the evidence for that. And so we'll see. Maybe if he simply gives all of the responsibility on the power play to Trevor Zegras, that they'll flourish, that they'll find a way. But I'm a little skeptical of how it'll go, and not that I think it'll go poorly, just that I don't know what to expect. Really.
So two things that I want to jump in on real quick here is, one thing I can recall, there was a Vancouver Canucks, I think Canucks Army or something like that, wrote an article that was basically like the reason why their power play had so much success was essentially they fed it to Pettersson, like you said, so much. The issue was that the season after, Hughes to Pettersson wasn't working because teams were keying in on it and they weren't really able to adapt. And that was maybe an issue with Newell Brown was that he wasn't able to really adapt. My question is that who is going to take over the power play reins? Because you now have two guys in Newell Brown and Jeff Ward who both, as assistants, have been known for running power plays. That is what Jeff Ward's calling card has been every single stop of the way as an assistant head coach. Assistant coach. Same thing with Newell Brown. He's run the power play wherever he's gone. Maybe it's going to be both of them doing it. Maybe Bob Murray figures that had to fall on Dallas Eakins' shoulders last season, with Mark Morrison not really filling the role.
Get as many cooks in the kitchen.
Exactly.
See what they come up with. I mean, look,
it's not an awful idea, honestly.
Like, if you look, and we'll get into the Joel Bouchard hiring soon, but if you just look at what they did behind the bench in terms of these assistants, we don't actually know if all three of them will be on the bench, but I think we can kind of assume that they will be.
Yeah.
Because it's not that uncommon in the NHL nowadays.
Yep.
I think that this is probably the way to go, is to get as much responsibility. And this is not like a ringing endorsement of Dallas Eakins, and we'll get into more of that later on, but get as much responsibility for the X's and O's portion of it out of his hands. It does seem that his strength as a coach is as a communicator, as a motivator, as a guy who can get players to buy in, or at least get guys on the same page. And so if you can get the tactical responsibilities in the hands of a Jeff Ward and a Newell Brown for the power play, kind of combine those two minds, I think that could potentially yield better results. And then Stothers I think he seems to be kind of more of the bad cop.
At least that's what it seems like. It seems like he's just there. He's been brought in to run the defense. He's there to kind of be, like you said, the bad cop.
Yeah, and there is, I mean, just talking to people who have covered the Kings and the Ontario Reign, it does seem that there's been a lot of rave reviews about him and his ability to click with players on the back end. So I don't doubt that could potentially work, but a lot of these hirings aren't necessarily slam dunks. They're just like, okay, well, this could work.
So reading the tea leaves a little bit here.
It's a lot of coaches.
Including one guy that was just recently a head coach in the NHL and had been come in as an interim head coach also.
Yeah.
Do you think there's anything with that and this is reading into the tea leaves a lot here.
Big time.
But the fact that the Ducks, as far as I can recall, have never had three assistant coaches on the bench. Now, this is not me saying that they're going to have three on the bench. They did have Scott Niedermayer. No, we don't. But they had Scott Niedermayer as an assistant for a while. He was the eye in the sky type of guy, though. Who knows if they're going to do that with this. But they now have three bona fide assistant coaches that all have experience in the NHL, or in Stothers' portion, at least head coaching experience in the AHL, and significant portion of it. So this is the first time that I can think of that they have three legit assistant coaches, not just a former player starting to learn the game. And
yeah, exactly. They're all guys who could hypothetically step in.
Correct.
Maybe not Newell Brown, maybe not Stothers, but there's at least a claim.
But Jeff Ward could be given the interim tag.
Well, it's almost as if, hey, if things flame out again, you have the replacements right there or you could do like a committee.
And I think that this is a very interesting transition point to one Joel Bouchard, who.
Well, yeah.
Oh, you got anything more you want to say?
No, I think that's the thing is up until today, or I guess when the news broke, which would have been last Friday. Today we became official, but so up until that point, just on those 3 hirings, you thought, okay, well, the Ducks are loading up on coaches, a lot of cooks in the kitchen, but this is in line with what Bob Murray was saying. We want to support Dallas as much as we can, get some of the work off of his plate. And I think that was in line. You could read into the tea leaves a little bit and say that, yes, that is a lot of guys who could in theory be head coaches, but it wasn't enough for me to make that claim of the Ducks are at least thinking ahead of life after Dallas Eakins. But then when the news came down that they hired Joel Bouchard and all of what we've heard from his comments, from Murray's comments since that time, have really led me to think that there is a little bit of an undercurrent there of potentially preparing for life after Eakins. So Bouchard, just so for everyone who hasn't caught up yet, was the head coach for the Canadiens, AHL club, the Laval Rocket, and his contract was up this offseason. And essentially the Canadiens didn't come running after him to get him up to be an NHL assistant. That was on the table, but they didn't really make him feel wanted. That's what we've all heard out of the Montreal media, and the Ducks went after him hard. They made an offer, and they really wanted him to join the club. They wanted him to. They loved his development track record, which has been strong in Laval. They wanted him to lead the San Diego Gulls. Didn't renew Kevin Dineen's contract to go after Bouchard. Apparently, there were 2 other candidates outside of Bouchard, but that he was their number 1 guy. He's the guy that they landed on. And then you read some of Bouchard's comments today where he's saying it himself that, look, when a club calls you that really wants you with an NHL head coach that has a year left on his contract, and those aren't the exact words, but that's the general thrust of the comment, it just really makes you wonder, like, what is the plan here for Dallas Eakins after next year? It almost feels as if, I don't know, it's becoming hard to ignore this pattern.
Yeah.
I don't want to go so far as to say the Ducks have hired Eakins' replacement, because there is, of course, a universe where the Ducks have a good season next year, where Eakins takes a step forward as a coach, the team takes a step forward. But I don't know, what's been your reaction? Where's your mind kind of settling here?
Well, my first reaction to this was, first off, I was kind of puzzled by it because I thought Dineen was still under contract. And so no one had really reported what Dineen's contract status was and like that. And granted, AHL coach, not exactly high priority for people
it's also the Ducks. So
yeah, exactly. But it really did kind of feel like it came out of left field. And to me, it was like, well, does this mean they're firing Dineen? Is this Dineen leaving? Is it a situation where the contract is up? It was very puzzling. And I mean, to be quite honest, I don't know the AHL coach for every single team throughout the league. I know some higher profile ones, but Joel Bouchard is not exactly someone that I necessarily know that much about. So kind of leaning on you for a little bit there, but it does seem as if
he is probably one of the more high profile coaches that's been in the AHL last couple of years.
But it does,
and even before that in junior.
Yeah, it does seem as if he's a guy that is very highly respected from the Montreal Canadiens perspective, is very highly respected in terms of player development. He's someone that you were telling me about is very much given credit for guys like Jake Evans' success, kind of more so these lower down type players, and maybe the Ducks don't like the way that a Sam Steele, the way that Max Jones, the way that these guys have necessarily developed.
You go back to last year when Jesperi Kotkaniemi got sent down to the AHL, had a good run there, did talk about Bouchard's influence. So
because
the fingerprints are there.
Yeah, because I mean, Sam Steele, Max Jones, none of those guys played under Dallas Eakins in the AHL, right? And that was kind of Dallas Eakins' calling card in the AHL. They would have only had, I think, Dineen full time. Unless I'm spacing there, maybe they had a little bit of Dallas Eakins, but I don't think they would have had that much of him.
Lefebvre.
I think they may have had one season, actually. Let me correct myself. I think they had one season of him, but still, they may not have been the Ducks may not have been happy with the way things were going under Dineen from a player development perspective with the Isaac Lundstroms of the world.
It could also be a simple fact of, hey, Bouchard. They want, Bouchard was just the better option.
Which is the correct
with him
call.
available, and Dineen hadn't done enough to really sell them on him being the only option.
It's a cold and calculated move, but that's part of what happened. So here's the quote, the specific one that was in the article that came out today. It was on The Athletic. I will find out the person's name in 1 second, but the quote is from Bouchard. I was in a great spot here, but on July 1st, a team calls and tells me that they have an NHL coach they will move forward with who has 1 year left on his contract. We have young players and we believe in you as a coach. What do you want? We believe in what you do. And so that's essentially what Bob Murray said to him. It's very interesting to me that Joel Bouchard specifically mentions that that the Ducks said we have a coach with 1 year left on his deal.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. It's hard to say if that's exactly what was said in the conversation.
Yeah,
Bouchard.
It's very interesting that in a quote that the coach that is just hired, he specifically makes mention that the team has a coach that they're moving forward with right now who only has 1 year left on his deal. And this is from Marc-Antoine Godin from The Athletic.
Well, yeah. So and it's Godin.
Godin,
but it's fine. It's fine. I forgive you. I forgive you. But the other thing is that just from a PR perspective, from a kind of professional relationships within the organization, like that's not really something that you want to bring up if you're Bouchard. You don't want to ruffle feathers, and clearly either he wasn't thinking about that, or maybe we're misinterpreting the quote, whatever the case may be. But it is interesting that that's part of the dialogue here, that's part of the narrative, is that, hey, they have a coach who could be on his way out. And I think that for Bouchard, it's a good career move. If he does well with San Diego this year, if they have a good season, if some of the younger guys take another step, and there are guys who will be there next season. We've talked about like Bo Gru, for example. He's going to have development opportunities. If he shines there, and if Dallas Eakins and the Ducks have the season that maybe we're expecting here a little bit, which is going to be another struggle year, then the door is wide open for him to potentially become the Ducks' next head coach and to land his first NHL head coaching gig. So from a Joel Bouchard perspective, I 100% understand why he would do it. I think that this is a long-term career perspective. This is the right move for him, because it just, you have Dominic Ducharme in Montreal, who's coming off of a Stanley Cup final run. Do I think Ducharme had a lot to do with that? No, but the fact is they're going to bring him back because he got them to the Cup final. It's a lot like the England manager in the Euro.
Wow, bringing it back with an interesting reference there, and a callback to our text messages.
The team winning in spite of the coach is how I feel about both these situations. But the point I'm making is that I think that for Bouchard, he made the right call. And for the Ducks, I think that it's the right call as well. This is something I brought up today on Twitter. The Ducks have gotten a lot of credit for their prospect pool. They've gotten a lot of credit for their draft record. And, that you always hear about that when people discuss the Ducks and their prospect system and the Gulls. But in the last number of years, it hasn't been all that rosy. There have been some misses. There have been some developmental setbacks. I think Sam Steele is an example. Max Jones hasn't really taken the next step. Lundestrom is starting to come into his own. Mahura hasn't really done that yet. So there is room for growth there. And I do give the Ducks as an organization credit for wanting to not just rest in their laurels and just be happy that they have draft picks that are either graduating to the big club or graduating to the AHL. Like, they are still trying to improve that. And I think this is part of a larger narrative for the Ducks now, which is, bring in a guy like Jeff Solomon to be an AGM, who also could be potentially the next GM of the team, much like Bouchard could be the next head coach. I think that the infrastructure of this team, the stuff that people don't really think about, but that does extremely matter, all of that stuff is starting to tighten up a little bit, starting to get more solid. And I think that that's a really good thing for the Ducks for the next 5 years.
I do wonder how much of this, and this is just pure speculation, there's no way we'll ever know about this, but I do wonder how much of this is a Jeff Solomon hiring, how much of an influence he had on this specific situation. Because
I think it could be a Martin Madden hiring, actually, because Madden
Montreal
is based
connection.
Madden's based out in Quebec, and he probably catches a lot of Laval games, probably talks to Joel Bouchard. I mean, everybody talks to everybody in this business. And so I could see that, but you could be right as well.
There's also supposedly, I guess, Bob Murray and Marc Bergevin are really close friends. And
yeah,
so
exactly.
There's that. There's a whole lot of things. The reason why I was purely speculating on the Solomon portion of it, though, is I wonder how much of a say
it's a smart move.
Well, it's not only a smart move, but yes, that is definitely part of it. But the other part of it is if he is this guy that we both agree on that he is going to be the next general manager, it seems as if Bob Murray, once his contract's up, will probably take a step back. Solomon will take over that role.
Maybe president of hockey ops.
Yeah, that's purely our speculation there. But you would assume that if this is the guy that is potentially going to be the next head coach of the Ducks, that you would think the potential next head GM of the Ducks will have a big say in his hiring. So that's kind of where I'm going with it. Not necessarily anything there to read into too much, but just a curiosity there for me.
So the only thing I will say is that Bouchard has a good developmental track record. You hear only good things about him.
Yes.
And this is kind of similar to when Martin Madden was promoted to assistant general manager. And there's been people talking about how, he could become the next GM. We don't really know how that will translate. What he's done up to now, we don't really know how that will translate at the NHL level, because there have been some clashes. He's had some clashes with veteran players on the Rocket. There's been some fallout there. The team hasn't been hugely successful. That's not totally on him, because, like the AHL seasons are weird with call-ups and different things like that. But I don't want to paint this, though, as like, hey, the Ducks have this guy who's going to be a slam dunk NHL head coach once he makes the jump. We don't know that yet.
There's a reason why he was hired to be an AHL coach again, not jump straight to the NHL.
Exactly.
Like, so there are job openings this summer that he was not interviewed for. So that is something to consider.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that it's potentially a great move, and especially if Dallas Eakins has a setback this year.
Mm-hmm.
I do just find it interesting, though, how the Ducks are kind of laying this groundwork for Eakins' potential departure. And
it's almost like they have a succession plan in place, a succession plan.
It sucks because you don't want to talk about a guy like he's gone before he's actually gone.
Oh, but yeah. The writing's on the wall at this point.
But that's just what the optics are. And it's just interesting because it feels like they've almost... And again, now this is complete speculation, but I can't help but think a little bit.
We have a podcast. This podcast would not exist if we weren't just speculating on
We
things.
have airtime to fill. Yeah. I can't help but think like they already decided internally, like Dallas Eakins might just not be the guy long term, and we just don't want to fire him going into next year. Because if you would think that they might be more like investing in him for next season, and it feels like they're almost just hiring replacements for him left and right. Maybe that's just too harsh of a view on it, but that's I can't help but think that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. By the way, it's, I just want to say that for people who feel bad for Eakins or, this is putting a lot of pressure on him, that's the business. That's coaching in the NHL. That's coaching in professional sports. He hasn't really done anything to buy himself the benefit of the doubt. The Ducks have been horrendous the 2 seasons he's been there, particularly last season, where it felt like there was maybe some room for growth. That just didn't happen at all. If anything, they took a step back. So I don't think that Dallas Eakins is this sympathetic figure where he deserves the benefit of the doubt.
I mean,
I think a little pressure probably is the right call here.
It sucks, but sports is cutthroat. And at the end of the day, if you aren't delivering to what is expected of you, then from a player perspective, from a coaching perspective, from a GM perspective, I mean, there's a lot of money on the line. There's a lot of jobs on the line. There's a lot of things like that. There's pressure that gets applied, and
I don't think the Ducks want to be bad again next year.
No,
I think that internally
do you think that maybe this is part of it? Also, they view the Pacific as being weaker, and they think they can jump into a playoff spot.
I mean, the Edmonton Oilers just gave up assets to get Duncan Keith's corpse. So
and take on his full salary, like
and now they have to protect him and potentially have to protect him in the expansion draft. So I understand why you would think that. It's like, hey, the division's going to get significantly weaker, but even still, if you look at some of the models like Jay Fresh's War roster generator, the Ducks still aren't a playoff team.
No, I wonder how much of that would change based upon where Zegras and Drysdale end up next season.
That's the thing. Because Zegras now is like how Zegras looks in a model now is probably not how he will look next season.
Same thing with Drysdale.
Yeah, I mean, same thing with like Comtois and Terry, I think.
Yeah.
Although who knows if they'll be on the team.
They are closer to what they are, whereas there should be a pretty big jump in Zegras and Drysdale.
Yeah, and the thing with Zegras is it could be a very significant jump. And
Yes.
there's always that pie in the sky dream of Gibson bouncing back.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
that's also there.
and it's possible. I mean, it seems wide open, especially it appears as if LA is trying to go for it again with with getting Victor Arvidsson, and they're in on a couple different pieces. It seems as if, and maybe rightfully so, a lot of people view that third place in the division kind of wide open. I think Calgary probably has the best chance at taking it, but it feels
Calgary, you can't just pencil them in.
Well, you also don't necessarily know what they're going to do with their roster because they may just do something weird this offseason.
They might blow it up.
Yeah,
I mean,
may
they
trade
probably
Johnny
should blow it up. Which would be, I mean, I think that they're at the point though where they're stuck in that mediocrity,
they may lose Mark Giordano to Seattle. There's a whole lot of things that could change things.
This is kind of it's potentially something that you want to factor into your plan, which is, hey, the division is there, but at the same time, you don't want to fully bank on that either.
You don't want to. Well, you also don't want to bank on it with this with next year's draft,
because it's not as if the Ducks were hugely successful against teams that we thought that they should have beaten in last year's regular or this year's regular season. So it'll be interesting.
Yep. And I really guess the fine. I mean, anything else you want to mention on Joel Bouchard? Is it Joel or is it Joel?
It's Joel. Technically.
Okay.
It's the French print. There is an accent on the E. There's the two dots.
Wait, I thought it was the O had the two dots. That was like an umlaut.
No, it's on the E.
Okay.
Joel.
Yep, I'm staring at it right now. There we go, Joel.
So the only other thing that I wanted to talk about, I mean, so on the coaching front, I think that's kind of it. I really think that there's some groundwork here for life after Eakins. And at bare minimum, I think that this is a good move for San Diego. And I'm not 100% sold yet that the moves behind the bench in Anaheim are going to translate to a better power play. I think just a full season of Trevor Zegras on the power play is probably going to help just by itself.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about this mock draft?
Sure, let's do that. I got one more thing after that, and then we'll get into the Q&A.
Okay. Yeah, so looking at the mock draft here from Corey Proman on The Athletic, which I never look at as, hey, this is what, a ranking of the best players. It's just more so it's getting the pulse of the industry, getting a pulse of where insiders think different guys are going to go. And in his mock draft, he had Owen Power going number 1 to Buffalo. And it sounds like that has really solidified and pretty much a lock, although we won't know until it happens. Owen Power to Buffalo at 1, and then Matthew Beniers number 2, which we haven't really been able to say whether or not we're for sure on that, but it sounds like that's where it's headed.
It seems like a lot of people have gone that way, but it's not a set in stone thing. It almost feels like it's 50-50 at this point, whether it would be Beniers or whether it will be a defenseman like a Luke Hughes, like a Brant Clark, like a Simone Edvinsson. I think there's a whole lot of defensemen that could slip in there, but a lot of people are really thinking that Seattle and Ron Francis with their first ever draft pick will take either a defenseman or a center. They're not going to go with a winger.
Yeah, and then getting to number 3 with the Ducks, so he has Dylan Guenther going to Anaheim, and then the very last sentence of the blurb saying that the organization could use another premium center, so teams around the league think Mason McTavish or Beniers, if he gets number 3, could be possibilities here as well. So I know that you have your skepticism on Guenther, but I think overall this is kind of the right thought process. The Ducks,
Correct.
If they're not going to get Eklund, I think they need to go get a forward. They need to get a guy who can supplement Trevor Zegras, who can potentially play on his wing, play on the power play. Dylan Guenther seems to have a good offensive toolkit. Mason McTavish as well brings more of a motor. We all know, we've talked a lot about Matthew Beniers, more of a two-way game, but if it's one of those 3 guys, how do you feel about this draft?
I feel pretty good. I think Mason McTavish would be the one I would be least excited about. I think
interesting.
He's a guy
less than Guenther.
Less than Guenther. I think Guenther, at least maybe you can point to, well, yes, it was a small sample size. He was able to score a bunch of goals in the WHL. Whereas Mason McTavish, and granted, part of this is due to the OHL not playing this year, is a little bit kind of more under the radar type of player. He played in the Swiss League and put up 11 points in 13 games in the Swiss League. The thing that makes me somewhat skeptical with McTavish is one of his premier assets is his size. And I'm always a bit skeptical when a premier asset for a player is that he's big. And so I think McTavish doesn't necessarily fit that. I think that he does have good hands. He does have a decent level of skill. and he was very good at the U18s, putting up his Z score. So I'm looking at kind of Z score from the Elite Prospects Draft Guide, and his expected assists per 60 is kind of off the chart, really good defensively. So I think he would be a very good pick. I just think from an excitement level, he would be lower on my list. I think that Matty Beniers makes me excited because he's a transition monster more so than anyone else. I think McTavish is almost that a similar type of player, but a little bit on the
upside feels lower with McTavish.
Correct. And then I think Gunther and Eklund kind of fit in that same situation of the winger that can score. Eklund, I think, is more exciting because he can do a lot more than Gunther, and I think that he's a more creative, more agile player, can create plays, is more of a playmaking, is more heady, everything like that. But I think Gunther is also defensible because you kind of want a shooter to go with Trevor Zegras. Now, do you want to – it really depends on best player available versus need. And I think Gunther may fit the need better. Eklund's the best player available out of those two.
The thing is, I think so many teams are going to pass on Eklund.
I agree.
And it's the Marco Rossi effect.
It's the size.
Yeah, it's the size. Part of it is I think there's still maybe some skepticism towards forwards in Sweden. I don't know, but I think that is who I would take, but I'm just at the point where I don't think they'll take them. So I've kind of separated that out of my thought process. And I agree with everything you've said. I do find it interesting that Gunther is that's the name that's starting to pop up, just like last year where Drysdale's name started to pop up. And then we were thinking, that doesn't make sense. They need a forward. And then they end up picking Jamie Drysdale. And so I think this could be a similar pattern. Yeah. Although this year it's so much more wide open that
yes, that's the thing.
It's defensible to go any which way. But you know me, I always lean towards offense. I think that that's the hardest thing to find on to get for any team. You can get it in the draft and in that top 5, and they have that opportunity at number 3. So if they go Gunther, if they go Beniers, McTavish, I think that those are all fine picks because that's gonna help an area of need, and it's gonna help their overall upside.
And without giving away too much here, because everyone go support Elite Prospects, very very good site, very definitely worth it. Their draft,
high quality.
Their draft guide, I think, is the most thorough, most well thought out prospect ranking that you will find.
You'll also like learn about the game because the way that they write about these guys, there's a lot of technical breakdown of like skating stride. And
correct.
I've actually gotten better as a skater just from reading these guides because it's made me rethink how I skate. So there you go.
Without giving away too much, I'm just gonna give you where they have the guys rated that we've listed right now. So they have Beniers first overall, second overall is Eklund. Then they have, and let me scroll to it very quickly. Give me 1 second here because there's just the list of players. It will load for me. So Beniers is first, Eklund is second, then McTavish is fifth, Gunther is seventh.
Okay.
So that's where they have all those guys listed.
But between those names, there's just a bunch of D-men?
Yeah. So here, I'll let me just list out their top 10. This is not giving away anything from them because they have a lot of information, so go look at their reasonings for why. But it's Beniers, Eklund, Power, Clark, McTavish, Wallstedt, Gunther, Edvinsson, Lissell, and then Johnson.
Okay. Yeah, I think if you probably read through that, though, there is an acknowledgement of this order is kind of...
Well, this is their ranking. This is not and I think that's the clear thing with Pronman that's important to make here is that's his mock draft. So
exactly.
This is not a ranking, this is a mock draft.
Exactly. So but all this to say, I think if the Ducks go Gunther, it's not who I would pick, but it's also not this terrible reach or anything like that. It will help them. It will help their pipeline.
Yep.
They just need more forwards. I'm just going to hammer this home.
They just need more good players.
They need more good players. They need guys who can score. You saw it this year, how terribly challenging it is for them to generate offense, and they're not getting any bump from the coaching or the power play. So they really just need more talent.
And one thing I want to also mention about this draft is I don't expect, and I don't think anyone should expect, any player from this draft to make the jump right away this year, because it already appears as if Owen Power has committed to going back to Michigan. So that's his prerogative to go back. I haven't seen anything on Beniers, but I would assume maybe that's the same case if Power's going back, you might think Beniers wants to go back for another
also
go at it.
For a lot of these guys, it was just a weird year.
Yeah.
You kind of want just like a normal development year.
Exactly.
And Brant Clark had to go to Slovakia, so
Mason McTavish had to go to Switzerland.
Yeah. So
Gunther had 12 games.
So, I mean, for some of these guys, maybe they shouldn't go back, but maybe they will. Just maybe teams want to see them in kind of a normal environment against their peers. So who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? But all this to say that, look, the draft is coming up. We have plenty more to break down on that and that we'll talk about. But start thinking about it, folks. Start letting it. Start doing your research.
The draft is what? I think it's a week from Friday. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I believe it's a week from Friday.
Something like that. Oh boy, how do I not know this off the top of my head?
It feels like it's come out of nowhere because of the Cup final.
July 23rd. So that is next Friday.
Yeah, next Friday, and expansion draft is next Wednesday. Speaking of which, Felix, we're doing a watch along for the expansion draft. I'm telling you right now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks. Wait, when is that?
Next Wednesday.
Okay. Wow. Next week is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Next week is going to be fun.
Next week is going to. So yeah, I think the draft, if we can, I'll see what we can do. I think we're going to try to do a Twitch watch along, Twitch stream of the draft.
Yeah, as is tradition.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
We need to do a mock draft before some point.
We will on the Patreon podcast. Felix, we discussed that part in our text messages. We will be doing a Patreon episode at some point this upcoming week and next week about doing a mock draft and one for the mock expansion draft. And perfect transition, Felix. The expansion draft lists are required by Saturday.
Yep. Prediction time. Who do you think the Ducks are going to protect? Ooh, I think you should go first on this because this is your bread and butter.
So have I flipped any of my picks? I'm bringing up the Seattle expansion draft simulator just to kind of open it up to ring my memory a little bit. So my initial, my old thought was that the Ducks would do 8 skaters. They would go Fleury, they would go Manson, they would go Lindholm, they would go Fowler.
You flipped.
No, I had those 4.
Yeah, well, so I think to me, if you do 4-4, so I think it'll be Fowler, Lindholm, Manson, Fleury,
and then the 4 forwards would be
Raquel, Terry, Lundestrom,
Lundestrom, and then probably Steele.
Steele
or Jones.
Yeah, I think it'll be Steele over Jones, just because I think that they still want to see Steele get it. Like, I think that maybe they'll view this as like, hey, if we protect Sam Steele, that'll send him the right message that we have confidence in him, and that'll help him. Because with Max Jones, who do you think is more potential of those two? Like, do you think there's this big difference either way? Because I don't think that there's that much of a difference.
I don't think there's that much of a difference, which is why I would probably do Steele, just because he's a center.
Because he's a center, and maybe he's shown a little bit more. I mean, it's not as if Max Jones has shown a ton either. And so anyway, it's going to be one of those two for the 4th spot.
By the way, Heyo Deflo is asking, why are we protecting Manson? Even if you don't think Manson has played that good of a game,
they need to protect him so that they can trade him.
Correct.
Yeah, because losing him for nothing would actually be like just a disaster in terms of asset management.
There's no way. There's no.
So
way
this is what we think they'll do. By the way,
well, there is no way that the Ducks will leave him exposed, because here's the thing: if they would have been willing to leave him exposed, they would have just traded him at the deadline for whatever they could have gotten and not held up such a high price. Like that. Yeah. That's the key thing here is like there aren't these two, like, you can't say, well, they didn't want to trade him for anything but a first rounder and all this different stuff. And then on the flip side say, well, they should expose him. It can't be both. It's got to be one or like those two. Basically, if they are doing that, then they are going to protect him because they value him.
So notably exposed though is Kevin Shattenkirk and Adam Henrique.
Well, first off, the Ducks are exposing Shattenkirk. Granted, it could be Shattenkirk or Larson filling the role, but yes.
Well, you think it'll be? I mean, I don't think they'll protect Shattenkirk either. No. We don't actually know that.
And there's no way that they protect Adam Henrique because they put him on waivers this past year.
Maybe the
Kraken
could the Kraken take Volkov?
They can take him. I've seen people like throw his name.
Protect Volkov.
I've seen people throw his name out there as someone the Ducks should look to protect, and they don't want to lose him. I'm like, Are we watching the same game right now? Like Volkov, like he's been fine, but like
between Volkov, Jones, and Steele, I just think it's kind of like it's different shades of gray. It's all the same kind of player.
To me, Volkov's the worst out of those three.
I don't know. Sam Steele is real bad, or has been real bad.
I guess I'd rather take the guy that I've put my development time into.
Well, yeah, from an organizational perspective, yes. But they did trade for Volkov.
They traded Antoine Morand for Volkov.
And like a 7th.
Yeah, like you're acting like as if they traded a lot of draft capital. They barely traded
I don't see the Kraken picking up Volkov.
No.
I think it's always a red flag when you're 23, you've already been traded.
To me, the discussion is going to be with the Kraken of
Mahura.
Well, the discussion is what do they want from the Ducks for this expansion draft? Are they going to want someone for the next year or two that is going to decline and they will eat up some of your cap, but they will help you ice a competitive roster? Because that is what Adam Henrique,
sell some jerseys.
That is what Adam Henrique, that is what Silverberg, that is what Shattenkirk will do. All three of those guys fill those roles. All three of those guys, especially Henrique and Silverberg, are signed for a significant period of time moving forward. Shattenkirk is I think the easiest contract to eat because it's just 2 years. And it's a decent amount of time, and I think he's a good player.
What would you do if you're Seattle? Now, this is hard because you don't have the other 30 teams.
Yeah, that's the hard part of.
Or I guess 29 teams.
If I had gotten a decent amount of futures from other teams, and in a spot where I'm comfortable with the future, I would take Shattenkirk. Because I think Shattenkirk is actually a good player. I think he's a guy that can play some heavier minutes on defense.
Well, you can also flip him.
Correct.
That's the thing with Shattenkirk. Like Henrique and Silverberg, you don't really have that possibility.
Henrique was put on waivers and wasn't taken for free. So yeah, Shattenkirk is at 3.9 for the next 2 years, whereas Silverberg and Henrique are at 5+ for the next 3.
Like if you end up getting a 3rd round pick for Shattenkirk, if you're Seattle, that's a net win.
Yeah. And
so you didn't have to give up anything.
Although there's also the perspective, if you're Seattle you're going to have a lot of cap space. You could take Henrique, retain half or eat half, and then get something back for him.
Yeah. I mean, there's a number of different ways that they could go with this.
So the discussion, I think from a Seattle perspective is what do you want from the Ducks? Do you want someone who will help you now or someone who more so will be under club control for a significant period of time?
So to me, if it's someone you want now, I think it's between Shattenkirk and Henrique.
Yes.
And if it's someone for the future, it's probably going to be one of Mahura, Volkov, Jones, Steele, whoever like the young players that's available.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Jacob. We haven't said Jacob Larson's name.
Yeah,
I feel like he's the dark horse here.
There's no way. Well, what about a guy like a Milano or a Heinen? I think they're a bit too old.
I think that like there's just not really a lot of runway left for those guys. I mean, with Milano, there is a really uncertain injury situation there. That no one seems to really know what's going on. So I don't see those guys.
Wait, why haven't I discussed this yet?
What
if Ron Francis just and all of the analytics people just like don't have a say. Ron Francis just takes over and he's like, I need my first line elite center.
Derek Grant.
And they take Derek Grant.
What if the Ducks protect Grant?
There's no way.
What if instead of protecting one of the youngsters at the fourth spot,
they did protect Antoine Vermette last expansion draft.
Yeah.
But granted, what if? On that one, it was because they had just like a free spot.
What if, though?
What if?
Would your head just explode if they protected Derek Grant?
I'm actually very excited for the protection list just to have our podcast next Monday so we can break it down and really critique.
Free topic.
Yeah.
I predict there will be one like WTF pick.
Who?
Hey, I just named you one.
Does Bob Murray grow or have the guts to leave Fowler exposed?
No,
there's no way.
No,
that would be the WTF.
It would make sense if he left him exposed. You've made the case, and I agree with it, that leaving him exposed makes a lot of sense because worst case scenario that he gets moved and you just you get off his cap hit, and best case scenario, I mean, I guess you just keep him and you're able to protect someone else that you don't want to lose. Like there's not really like a bad situation there with Fowler if you leave him exposed.
I mean, the bad situation is if you lose him, you're worse next year because of it. But you gain a bunch.
But is that so bad though?
No, I mean, you gain a bunch of cap space.
In the Shane Wright draft?
I mean, here's the other thing is, and I've long said this, the Ducks have to sign Lindholm. Like, if they're... sorry, let me rephrase that. If they want to keep him, his contract is up next summer. And so...
There's a decision that needs to be made there.
Yeah, it's whether Fowler... Who's going to be your old defenseman on this team? Is it Fowler or is it Lindholm?
Bob Murray talked about it in his end-of-season presser about that there's going to be a lot of action, leading up to the expansion draft and leading up to the draft itself. And so...
The clock's a-ticking.
Maybe we're going to see someone moved. Maybe it'll be...
Victor Arvidsson was moved for, a second and a third because of the expansion draft? That's a former 30-goal scorer?
Well, I think it's also the fact that the Kings are just willing to give up picks because of their farm system.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Giving up $100 if you're a millionaire is easy. Giving up $100 if you only have $1,000 is tougher.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that was a shot at the Ducks. Can't really tell.
That actually wasn't even meant to be a shot. It was just meant to be a reference of the Kings have so many prospects that it's easy to give up a second and a third, seeing as they still have a second and a third in this year's draft.
And they could also, So I think that we could see the Ducks we've heard the rumors that the Ducks are going to be active or that the Ducks want to make moves that look out for Anaheim. And I mean, we're coming up on it now. Like, this is when we're supposed to see it. And oh, by the way, at the trade deadline, when we were critical of Bob Murray, everyone told us, oh, you just wait until the summer. Well, this is it. Like,
I'm waiting.
The time is now. I'm waiting. Still haven't seen anything.
The gift. Well, we're waiting.
Yeah, like, this is it. And so I am eagerly awaiting to see what happens here, because I can't wait. I might throw out a petty tweet if they do nothing. I just might. Who knows?
As you are wont to do.
Oh, please. All right. Should we move on to questions?
Yeah, so for anyone watching this on YouTube, yes, we're on YouTube, youtube.com/CrashSponder on your favorite podcast services. We do a live stream of the show each and every time. Now, instead of it being on Sunday, every Monday at 8 p.m.
Monday.
Well, not
Monday,
every.
love.
We're going to be taking a couple weekends off here and there during summer. But during the season, every Monday at 8 p.m., where you can
back to the cottage.
Tune in. Yeah, going to the cottage. Tune in and see our wonderful faces on this show. And you can help support the show in a way that actually helps out significantly. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Twitch Prime gaming sub each and every month. And you do have to hit that subscribe button. After 30 days, there's also just the regular Prime or regular subscribe option. You get special emotes in the chat, special badges next to your name. And I already read off some from earlier, but Heyo Deflo resub for 9 months. Good friend of the show, good patron over there. And Fat Geralt resub for 7 months because he was able to make it finally. So thank you, Fat Geralt, for subbing. So here we go. M. Young said, do you think Seattle is going to end up with players like Theodore and Tuck due to teams making deals with teams not to take someone? Or do you think every team has now learned from the Vegas expansion and won't make that mistake?
So there's a couple of problems here. I think that at the time, we didn't see that coming either. And so right now, I don't really know who is who's the guy that's going to be there, that's going to be available for Seattle. And I don't, teams should be smarter. Will they be? There's also the weird situation with the cap and how that's going to impact everything and how cap space is such an asset. So the environment now is just totally different. And I would be a little surprised if teams got the wool just completely pulled over their eyes. But
it's going to happen.
NHL GMs are also not known to be great at learning from their mistakes. So
it's going to happen. I mean, last expansion draft, I did not even think that Shea Theodore was in play.
Yeah, same. Like, the fact that happened was just like galaxy brain. Like, how is that even possible? And the Ducks found a way. They found a way to make that happen. And I actually really think that is part of all of the changes that we're seeing with the Ducks. I think that they felt that one. They felt the sting of that loss.
That is legitimately on the level of, like, what was it? The Toronto Maple Leafs traded the pick that became Scott Niedermayer to the Devils.
Yeah.
Like, it's close to, not like Shea Theodore isn't Scott Niedermayer level.
I mean, Shea Theodore could win a Norris now.
He could. And you gave him up because of the expansion draft when he wasn't even eligible to be taken.
Yeah, it's actually
like he wasn't eligible for the expansion draft.
How different does the Ducks rebuild look if you still have Shea Theodore?
You had a Norris level defenseman.
Because let's see, he is.
You had a Norris Trophy level defenseman.
He's 25. He's going to be 26 in August, so in a couple weeks. So he's not exactly like one of the youngsters, but he is well within his prime.
Yeah,
and he's going to have a few more years of his prime.
I
so
mean,
you can probably go in a little harder. You can be a little more aggressive in getting back in because you have a Shea Theodore who's in his prime and who is at such a high level. So
yeah. Piano Keys said, "What do you guys think of the rise of William Eklund as a possible first overall pick? I've seen a lot of rumors on Twitter about this.
It's not happening.
Yeah, I don't see him going first overall.
I do think the Sabres are very weird and unpredictable. I mean, last year
it's possible.
Last year they I mean, you saw what they did picking Jack Quinn, but this year I feel like they will probably just try to make the safe pick, which ironically enough is probably actually not the pick that I would make there. So
yeah. I mean, Eklund at first overall would be a good pick.
Yeah, but would be better than Power, but they,
it is what it is. I don't foresee it happening. I think Eklund probably is one of the best players in this draft, and I think probably should go in the first overall range. I just don't see Buffalo being the team.
He's 5'8".
Yeah, exactly.
So, there you go.
Exactly. This is a question just for me. NJ Devils fan 68. Who wins tomorrow, Gargano or Cross, and does Cross show up on Friday? So on NXT tomorrow, I actually haven't been watching WWE programming in a while, but I keep my finger on the pulse a little bit.
You always make these bold declarations of I'm never watching WWE again.
I legit don't.
But I come back every time.
Wait, I don't watch it, but I pay attention and keep my finger on the pulse and read about it.
You come back every time.
But
just say it like it is.
I watch Dynamite every week and watch BTE, watch all the AEW stuff. But regardless, I think it makes sense that Johnny Gargano is going to win it. The way has supposedly been really fun and doing a lot of fun things. Karrion Kross is set for the main roster. I mean, he had some matches on main event as the NXT champion. It seems like he's a guy that Vince would love. So it makes sense that he's main roster bound. And you give Johnny Gargano another run with the strap and give the way a little bit of a spotlight. And maybe you eventually get Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano like 4 or 5, and so much fun.
I agree.
Yeah. There you go.
100% agree.
The more fun story is the Hangman Page versus Kenny Omega story that's being told. And that's one of the best stories, not just in pro wrestling, but in all of television. Bold declaration for you. Salem, what are you doing? Salem has decided to walk behind my monitor. This is how you know we're getting late in the episode. Salem is trying to distract
your screen
me.
Is shaking now. Your camera is shaking.
Yeah,
because your cat has invaded your setup.
Yeah, if you saw me reaching, I was trying to move her off the desk because I knew that she was going to do this.
By the way, I see you sipping on the Essentia water.
Yeah.
Bougie.
I guess.
Very bougie. Very, very bougie.
Yeah.
As I drink my like $4 water bottle or $6 water bottle.
Let's see if Salem comes down without actually ruining my setup. I hope that happens. But yeah. What do you think, by the way, of Pierre Maguire getting hired?
So there is just there has to be some kind of comedic element to the fact that the Senators hire Pierre Maguire and the Oilers trade for Duncan Keith on the same day. Like two of the most incompetent franchises in the NHL, both reminding us why they are where they are by doing two of the stupidest things that any team can possibly do. It is actually mesmerizing that someone could delude themselves into thinking that Pierre Maguire should hold some executive position in their organization. Hey, if he comes in and proves me wrong, great for him. But anyone who's talked the way he's talked the last 20 years or whatever on TV, I am just not buying what he's selling at all. And I even saw, rumors today or people writing that did the Senators hire Pierre Dorian's replacement in Pierre Maguire. Like, that's insane. That's actually insane. It's like you're hiring John Madden, out of the broadcast booth to be your GM. Like, it's not something that I would recommend. And so, yeah, I don't really understand that one at all. And then of course the Oilers just completely, shitting the bed in draft or trading for Duncan Keith. So yeah, I mean, the Canadian team's reminding us why so many people were laughing at the North Division just because of what they do.
Yeah. All right. We got 2 more questions to get to. M. Young said, surprised that we haven't talked at all about Tarasenko. Do you think the Ducks could be in on him?
Yeah. So we haven't. So when I was writing our very long and elaborate script for today's show, I it crossed my mind because there has been that whole fallout in St. Louis of Vladimir Tarasenko wanting out. The disagreement there with his shoulder surgery, and it sounds like he's as good as gone. I just don't really see the fit for the Ducks there. It's a good question, though. I mean, it's probably something that we should have talked about just because it is in the news. I don't think it makes sense for the Ducks to give up assets to go and get a guy who is really kind of, I think he only makes sense for a team that's contending. And I just, the gap in timelines there for the Ducks, you know, from where Zegras and Drysdale are and then their other youngsters to where Tarasenko is, it just doesn't make sense. And the people that are whining about Eichel having his injury history, well, so does Tarasenko, and Tarasenko's older and not as good as Jack Eichel. So, I mean, if you don't want Jack Eichel, then you certainly shouldn't want Tarasenko. But even regardless, I think the Ducks should try on Eichel. I don't think they should try on Tarasenko because I don't really see the upside there.
I agree completely.
Okay.
So we're gonna end with one more wrestling one. Our NJ Devils fan is just out for my heart with these questions. He's asking Sami Callihan or Kenny Omega this weekend. So I don't know how I feel about this one because it's the summer of Kenny. It's gonna be the summer of Kenny dropping belts. I kind of think that he's gonna drop his first title at AAA Mania against Andrade, dropping the AAA Mega Championship. But it would be interesting if he loses the first title as the Impact or TNA title to Sami Callihan. I think eventually Kenny comes out on top, and I think the first title loses the AAA Mega Championship to Andrade. Eventually loses the TNA one. The only one he will have left is the AEW title, which he eventually loses it all out to Hangman Page in September, and the greatest story being told on television.
They need to hire you. They need to hire you and just help sell this wonderful production.
Did I sell you on any of it?
I mean, it sounded important. It sounded like something that I need to watch.
Kenny Omega currently holds 4 different titles from 3 different promotions, and
how is that possible?
Because the Forbidden Door has been opened. Kenny Omega, an AEW wrestler, showed up at Impact. He's also held the AAA Mega Championship for AAA in Mexico for multiple years now, pre-pandemic, and Andrade is going to take it from him. It's going to be great.
Anyway, let's move on from that.
Okay,
if you don't mind, unless if there's anything else you want to add there.
AEW is fantastic. Go watch AEW, everyone. That's all I got to say. Sure, fine. No more wrestling talk from me until there's another wrestling question that I can then pull in. Anything else? I can't really find anything else.
I just want to give you my condolences for England losing. I know that you're a big England supporter, big Harry Kane guy.
There you go.
He didn't do anything in that game. So congrats to him.
I mean, he did score the penalty. He scored the penalty shot. He was one of the 2 England players to score.
Yeah, and but what a disastrous finish for England. I feel bad. I have a good friend who's English, and watching him just crumble in emotional defeat when they missed that final penalty, that was kind of hard to watch.
Now it's on to the Gold Cup. USA beat who are they playing? Haiti yesterday. USA beat Haiti 1-0. Mexico drew with Trinidad and Tobago, so the 2 giants were struggling. I
will say, watching competitive soccer, like meaningful, high intensity game like that between Italy and England, made me kind of got bit by the bug a little bit. Bought FIFA 21 yesterday.
Yeah.
Played last night until 1 a.m. Very poor decision. So, if Jake ever decides to, toughen up and test me online, I think that may be our new streaming outlet. We'll see.
I will beat you with Tottenham. Oh, NJ Devils fan came in with one more question. Nick Gage or Zack Ryder? I'm going to go with Matt Cardona on that one. I'm going to say he pulls it off and beats Nick Gage. I'm not the biggest deathmatch wrestling fan, though. Heyo D-Flow is the person to talk to for that one, not me.
Okay. I think it might be time to wrap up. This is a record time. I don't think that we've gotten to the point of wrapping up below the hour mark in a long time.
I know.
So,
I mean, this podcast has not been brought to you by anyone, so there hasn't been any breaks.
This
all gas, no breaks.
This show has been short, but I think it's been sweet. That's what we do.
It's still like an hour.
Proper vitriol thrown at Dallas Eakins, Jacob Larson, Sam Steele. We're really just checking all the boxes, keeping sharp during the offseason.
Some good wrestling talk.
Yeah, some great wrestling talk, some Harry Kane, Tottenham references.
There
So
you go. I didn't even
all is
make the
well.
Harry Kane reference. That was you.
Yeah, but you doubled down on it, so it became yours with the double down.
Well, I mean, what is today, by the way?
Oh, today's holiday? I actually want to check now. What is today's holiday?
There you go, everyone. We're ending it on a strong note.
Yeah, we're going strong here. Ooh.
Final
boy.
episode of Loki debuts at midnight tomorrow. Fantastic show. Best MCU show there is.
This is a big one. This is a big one. I actually wish that I had let off with this. I really do. I really do. So this is actually for tomorrow. This is for July 13th, which is good because that's when most people will be listening. National French Fry Day. Happy National French Fry Day. I hope everybody goes out, grabs some delicious fries from your favorite fry provider.
Young comes in with the best Twitch comment I've seen yet. Jake versus Felix on FIFA.
Yeah.
Streaming.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying. Thank you. I agree. Thank you. Someone had to say it.
Who would you pick as your team?
Well, it depends who you would pick. It depends, like, how good of teams are we going? Are we going obscure teams? Are we going middling teams? Are we going just, best on best?
I'm waiting for you to somehow make a shot or take a shot at Tottenham right now.
I'm not. I'm not going to do that.
I will play as Tottenham.
Okay. I'll adjust from there. Also tomorrow is National Beans and Franks Day. So if you're feeling hungry, drive down to Wiener Schnitzel.
Bring us the dingus is asking, is it an In-N-Out day tomorrow? Because it's National French Fry Day.
If I play hockey tomorrow night, which I haven't yet decided on,
Jess will yell at him if he's not there.
Also tomorrow, for any of our Mongolian listeners, is Mongolia's National Day. So there you go. That's a big one. Did not know about that. Did not know they had a national day. But
yeah, Heyo Deflo said this is the quintessential middle of the off-season podcast.
It is. Also, okay, this one is important. I swear I'm done after this. This is an unofficial one. Like, so on this website, holidayscalendar.com, it has holiday type. This one falls under unofficial. The others were either weird or public holiday. This one is Embrace Your Geekness Day. So tomorrow, Jake, embrace yourself.
Thanks. There's the parting shot. There it is.
Woo, got him.
Yeah,
got him bad.
That one was very easy. I'll give you that one.
That was a crossover dunk.
Wow.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go practice FIFA. Jake, you're gonna go watch wrestling. But before we do that, we have to wrap up.
How did you know?
I didn't actually know. I just,
I'm gonna go watch AEW Dark Elevation. There you go. But yes, okay. Let's wrap this thing up.
Let's get out of here before we say something that'll.
If you want to support the show, an easy way to do it is Apple Podcasts. If you want to search us on there, leave us a 5-star review. We will read it on the show. I cannot remember if we read this one or not.
We did.
So we got a new one then since that one.
Oh.
Did we read Icarus Foxes?
Hold on. Let me just pull this up.
All right, I'm just going to read Icarus Foxes again.
Just read it again. If we read it already, whatever.
Yeah, so Best Ducks podcast period. Jake and Felix are awesome at not only presenting updates and news about the team, but also offering fresh takes and raw opinions on the team and its direction. Keep up the good work, boys. And then we also got one since then. So I think we may have read that one before.
I think we did read. Yeah, I think we did read these.
But
it's okay.
We have not read this one. This one from Blake T32 we have not read. Said, my favorite, 5 stars. I listen weekly while at work, and it's a great show to keep up with Ducks news and corresponding analysis. The boys always have some good takes with fleshed out point of views. The show makes it easy for me to keep up with any Ducks news I may have missed out on or discussion topics that I'm excited about, especially Felix's bad food takes. Love you all for putting these shows out.
Oh, yeah, we didn't read that one. I saw it, but we didn't talk about it. Well, thank you. I'm glad someone appreciates the food takes. I wouldn't characterize them as bad because they're my actual personal beliefs, but regardless of how you characterize them, I'm glad you enjoy them. I am glad you enjoy them.
And we have officially broken the 200 barrier. We're at 202 ratings. So thank you, everyone, for doing that. Thank you for pushing that. If you want to keep pushing it, we'll set a new goal.
Well, we got to do something. I feel like we got to. Jake will think of something. Well,
I'll pour this water on my head. No, I don't want to ruin my beer.
We'll play obligation hot potato and just throw it towards Jake and hope he figures something out.
Sounds about right for this podcast.
Okay, before I get myself in more trouble, Should probably wrap up. So yeah, definitely, if you've been enjoying the show, leave us a rating and a review, and we'll read it on the show. We really do appreciate those. We're also on Spotify. You can find us on YouTube, youtube.com/crashthepond. Really enjoy reading the comments there. We get some very in-depth comments. We get Buffalo Sabres fans jumping in because they're so offended by our trade proposals.
That was fun. That was a good time.
I enjoy that. So yeah, subscribe to us there. Turn on your notifications. And also check out our Patreon page. So patreon.com/crashthepond. For $1 a month, you get access to our patrons only Discord chat, which is a lot of fun. Great community. I'm going to be honest. I've been kind of absent in there the last month.
You have.
Which is a bad look for me, but Jake is in there. Jake's the more sociable one anyway. So Jake is in there. A lot of great people are in there. That's for $1. For $5 a month, you still get access to the chat, and you also get access to 2 bonus episodes a month. So we go more in depth on the Ducks. We do league-wide topics. We're going to do a mock draft on there. So, I mean, this is the time of year where you get bang for your buck. And then for $15 a month, we also do 2 watch-alongs a month. And I think, Jake, you said we're doing one for the expansion draft? Or what are we doing?
So current plan is, at least as of right now, is we will have a Patreon episode of a mock expansion draft, a Patreon bonus episode of a mock draft, a watch along of the expansion draft, and then we'll figure out a second watch along.
Yeah, so that's for $15 a month. It helps out the show tremendously, and I think you get more out of it this way. So if you want to go check that out, that's at patreon.com/crashthepond. You can also check out our website, crashthepond.com. We're probably going to have some articles going up there with all the action that's about to arrive. Hopefully some trades to break down.
Correct.
I'm really hoping that we get some trades. Check out crashthepond.com/shop. You can get one of these cool t-shirts that I'm wearing. Got the logo there, or cool logo.
I was wearing mine yesterday.
Were you? Okay, good. Yeah, I feel like we have to wear it to our games. It's obligatory at this point. And then, yeah, check us out on social media. Jake is on there at ReindeerGames91. Follow him for all the hot takes. Follow me at Felix_Sicard on Twitter. And that's going to do it for us tonight, guys. Glad to be back. It feels good to be back in the saddle. I swear that week off felt like an eternity.
I was going to say, we only took 1 week off.
I swear, we haven't missed a week in probably, I don't know how long.
I think we missed 1 week at the end of the season, but that's 2 weeks since January that we've missed.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a grind. So getting that week off, I didn't know what to do. Anyway,
what do I do with my hands?
Yeah, well, 4th of July kind of decided what I did, at least. Booze. Anyway, that's going to do it for us tonight, guys. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and we will talk to you at the next show. Have a good one.
Bye.